Today we're opening up our community garden spot. Guten gardening, everybody. Well, we got a ton of rain over the last couple of days. We got a ton of rain. And some of that rain was so severe, massive thunderstorms. It actually came with tornado warnings, tornado watches. You probably saw what happened in Iowa, really bad tornado there. But here, we didn't necessarily have the tornadoes themselves, but we've had, again, so much rain that, well, the area that I came into today to open up our community garden spot is, well, already filled with weeds. And this is something that they had done an initial plowing just a couple of weeks ago, just to get everything ready for all of these community gardeners. And actually, I came out a couple of weeks ago, like right the day that this garden opened up, and it was barren. And it's amazing to me to see. Well, I'm going to show you now just how quickly everything gets set up, and all these gardeners, hundreds of community gardeners, get in here and set up their own plots. And it's always really cool to me to see the different designs and layouts and techniques people have when it comes to setting up, their vertical growing spaces, their peas, their beans, whatever it is that they're growing vertically. They always have some creative ways of doing that. Well, here is our spot. We have just over 1,000 square feet that we're gardening in. And for those of you that haven't seen any of our previous community garden videos, I highly recommend you check them out so you understand the purpose of our getting this spot. The reality is that for $75, we get over 1,000 square feet to garden in. And this is where we grow a lot of the vegetables that we just don't have room for on our property, especially our winter squash and corn. So today I've got a lot of that winter squash right here that I'm going to be planting, a bunch of different varieties that we're going to put in the ground. Some Delicata, Canada Crookneck. But obviously with all of these weeds out here, I'm not just gonna plant them and let these weeds grow up. Last season with our sweet potatoes, we did some black food safe plastic that we laid out, and that helped to keep the soil warm. It also made it so we had less weed competitions. I think the key is going to be wherever I plant our squash underneath this, I'm going to give it a nice big X. Then I'll fold the corners back a little bit. Again, I'll give a couple of inches of space for the water to sink down there. And I'll likely poke a couple of holes as well throughout the plastic, throughout the rest of the plastic. So again, we'll be holding moisture in whenever I water it or when it rains, but we'll also be able to get that water right to the roots of the plant. One of the things they ask us to do is to lay down some mulch in between the different plots. And on a day like today where it's so muddy out, it makes perfect sense. I'm just now getting to that. So I'm gonna take care of that before I plant our winter squash. All right, folks, we need your help to make one of our final decisions here at the community garden spot. And I'm gonna be making that decision in the next couple of days. So we need your comment as quickly as possible in this video. And that is, what would be your favorite your top two types of corn that you would grow if you were us? So we got to pick the variety of corn that we want to grow this year. And we'd like to grow two different varieties. And of course, they need to be able to be compatible with each other. So give us a comment, let us know what your top two would be. There we go. That is much better. Now don't sink in when I walk along here. All right, we're going to start here in the corner. Have a nice little decks. We'll have to get the weeds out of here too, but tuck these back under. And I'm going to start with our Delicata. And I would say that last season, our Delicata just really didn't thrive the way we would have liked it to. Again, I lay a lot of that burden on just how quickly the weeds grow through here and how I just couldn't keep up with it with our trips and everything else. And that's why we're trying something different this year. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, look at that. Oof. But we'll clear out the weeds. A little spot's probably easier to keep weeded than those bigger spots. So something like this, get it in there, and it's not going to need any watering, that's for sure. Not today. This soil is pretty wet, which is not an ideal time to plant it, I know, but I think we'll be just fine. And you know, one other thing I'm gonna do is they have some mulch around here, some grass that they said hadn't been sprayed. And I'm just gonna use this to mulch around each of these plants as well. Because that'll help hold the plastic down, help with moisture, among other things. So in the end, well, it should look something like this around each one. That'll also keep any heat that's reflecting off of the black plastic away from being directly on the plant. The plant gets nice and big. That's gonna look pretty good. I'm gonna give a couple of feet of space in between each one. You know, these winter squash spread out upwards of 10, 12 feet. Really, they can grow quite a bit. So I'm gonna keep them spread out a little bit, but they have plenty of room in here to grow. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all these planted, and I'll give you a look at what all of this looks like. There's our 3 delicatas, and next up we have some spaghetti squash that we got from the same gentleman who a couple years ago gave us Adirondack Blue potatoes. Now I put in 5 of our Canada Crookneck, some of our favorite squash, and we're gonna follow that up with some delicata. So we'll do another 5 delicata, and we'll follow that up with our butternut squash, which was our biggest producer last year. Well, I've gone ahead and finished up for the day. I ended up planting a total of 30 winter squash. Now there's one thing I should have mentioned. In addition to trying the black plastic this season, we decided against planting the sugar pumpkin. There's something that we planted last year, one of the varieties that actually produced about 30 pounds of pumpkin, but they did not preserve well. And that's a big problem for us. I mean, we're still eating off the butternut squash from our harvest now about 7 months ago. And so we want those types of pumpkin that can actually stick around for the long term. So we're not gonna waste our time on a pumpkin, no matter how it tastes, if it's not going to last us as long. So the varieties that we have in here, we're still pretty varied in my opinion, and they should serve us quite well. But again, we're picking varieties that we know last longer, or the taste is so good, you know, we'll eat them up first. Like our Kabocha, we'll eat that up right away. That's my personal favorite out of what we've planted in here. So we've got butternut squash, Canada Crookneck, delicata. We've got, for the first time out here anyway, our spaghetti squash. Oh, I should mention that our Kabocha squash, those seeds are from 2018. We actually labeled them the sweetest Kabocha seeds. So those are now 6 years old. And so they seem to do just fine. We'll see how they actually end up producing. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we're still deciding on corn varieties, so please leave a comment and let us know what you think there. We are still planting some sweet potatoes, or at least that's the plan right now, so that's coming up as well. But now the garden's opened up. That's the way I'll put it. We have it planted just in time, I think, for some really nice weather. It's a long weekend ahead, and so we'll do our best to get out here and get as much done in addition to this as possible, but we need your feedback as well. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.